Hello everybody, hi, how are you? I am doing well. This is Heather, and today we are going to talk about the multiplayer for Nioh. Now, Nioh was a game I reviewed back in February, and I absolutely adore it. It's a super fast Souls-like that I might even like more than Bloodborne or the Dark Souls games in terms of how the combat actually plays. This multiplayer comes out the same time that a DLC drops, but you actually don't need the DLC to play the multiplayer. That said, I have no clue why you would want to spend a lot of time in this game's multiplayer because it's an absolute fucking disaster. And we can just watch this match to get a good sense of that. The biggest issue is that there's, like, everything's unstable. So this fella's going to be teleporting around like he's an actual weird anime ninja, and, like, it's impossible to fight this guy. I do okay. I try my best here to kind of compensate, and I think I hold my own, but the fact of the matter is that while this guy was the worst out of anybody I fought last night, plenty of other people were moving around, hitting me with weird hit detection stuff, teleporting all about. I can only imagine what I looked on their, how I looked on their screen, just because whatever peer-to-peer thing is happening here is an absolute mess. And so duels are completely off the table. Duels should be a thing that I love. First off, because I love the actual gameplay in Nioh. Secondly, because I really like melee fighting stuff online. I'm like one of the 5 people left who play For Honor. I was totally into Dark Souls 3, that PvP. Really loved that. I also did Invasions and stuff. I loved being an Aldrich Faithful in that game. This should be a perfect meeting of, like, all the things I like. Fast combat, really interesting footsie games where you're dodging around and trying to get the best positions, varied item use and magic, but instead it's just a disaster. Like right there, I don't even know why the match ended. My health isn't, like, drained. I didn't fall into the pit, at least on my screen. And so the game just suddenly ends. Maybe there's a rule where he only has to get me to a certain threshold of damage, but if that's the case, the game is very unclear in its rules as well. So in the best case scenario, the game's not good at explaining how multiplayer is handled. In the worst case scenario, it's fundamentally busted. Enough that it says that I fell down a hole and lost there when I still had a fair amount of health left to come back to it. Now this is 2v2. This is a lot better. This is still really hectic, and we can talk about that, but 2v2 feels really neat because there's a lot more opportunities to use items, to buff your weapons, to do all sorts of things. Nioh's combat is full of all sorts of dynamic things that can happen. He's guarding, so I'm just going to break down his guard and stab him. I'm trying to get him down into a tight area if I can bust down his guard. I'm going to go to my teammate. Like here, I just keep on wearing out his stamina. That's an interesting way to fight. I really enjoy that. And then I'm going to push in and see if I can get him. He eats some health. I'm going to try some item use and a couple other things. It's very exciting. I jump forward here and get sandwiched between 2 foes because I get, like, overzealous. This match has a story to it. When I look at it, it has certain pacing to it that I enjoy that can only happen, or at least happens more easily because of how dynamic and fast Nioh's combat is. But even then, even when this game is sort of functioning well from a connectivity standpoint, it ends up being pretty hectic when there's so many people playing. This is a fast game where you want to focus on one opponent, where you want to be dodging boss attacks or doing some really cool parries. And it kind of breaks apart when you add more people. It gets way too fast, gets really hacky and slashy in a way that's not enjoyable. People can gang up on you and gank you in a way that feels worse than even in Dark Souls when you would get gank spanked. So I don't know exactly what to think about this multiplayer. I think if the dueling was in a better state, that would be amazing. And I think you can have fun with the 2v2, but there's still lots of complications. Like, look, this is an interesting moment. He's trying to pull out a giant bomb. I hit him with sloth magic. Me and my teammate jump in. I get knocked off a ledge. I dodge it. And then I'm going to drop down and I'm going to use my Guardian Spirit ability to do, like, this big bursty DPS kind of thing. There are a lot of things that are happening in Nioh's combat, but with 4 players, that almost ends up being too many things. And then when you want to bring it down to just you and another player, you can't trust the game to treat your connections really well. So the end result is a multiplayer that has like a lot of potential, but completely squanders every single second of it by just not providing a decent play environment and not finding interesting ways to levy the core mechanics in a way that's really satisfying online. I want to head back to this. I really, really do. I want to like this. This should be everything that I enjoy. And instead, it's just messy. It's just really, really messy. And I want to see how they improve on it, but I don't have my hopes up. So I wanted to sit and talk with you about it. I have a write-up that I'm doing as well, but I wanted you guys to hear it from me. Nioh's multiplayer is busted. I'm sorry.